Return orders are created from the Sales and Marketing module. In the Common area, you'll notice a special section called Return Orders. We'll go ahead and open up the All Return Orders form to create a new return order. Here, when you're in the All Return Orders, you'll be able to see a list of all of the current existing return orders. We're going to go ahead and generate a new one by clicking the New Return Order button. This will open up a new dialog where you can select the customer information. You'll notice that you can perform the full text search in the return order form. I'll select the customer. In my example, I'm going to use Owl Wholesales. Then I'll click OK. You can manually add lines to your return order and specify the quantity. When you do this, there is no link created to an original order. This might be required if the original order does not exist in the system or cannot be found. Typically, you'll use the Find Sales Order button in the Return group of the action pane to find the sales order that you want to return. I'll go ahead and demonstrate how to do that. Here, you can see a list of all of the invoices for the particular customer that we created the return for. You can see the invoice number, the voucher, the date, and the invoice amounts. If you select a particular sales order by clicking the Select All checkbox, by default, all of the lines of that order will be marked automatically. However, if you do not want to return the whole entire order, you won't want to mark the Select All checkbox. Instead, you'll mark the individual line or lines that you want to return. So let's say I need to return one of these and one of these. I'll mark the checkbox next to each line that I want to return and type the quantity to be returned in the Quantity to Return column. It's important to note that this quantity cannot exceed the total quantity on the original order. Up at the top, you'll notice some additional fields. For example, I can select the reason code here why I'm returning these. Let's say it was a quality issue. You can also filter for a specific sales order, a specific item number, or a date range. When you use these options, the grid of invoices will be updated. If you click the Show Selected Transactions tab, it will show you each of the items that you've selected. It's important to note that when you're creating a return order, there's no restriction that the return must be for one single sales order. So if they also want to return one item from another sales order, you can select that sales order and then mark the lines that you want to return from that particular order. I'll go ahead and do that for this example. So now I'm returning 3 items in total. I'll go ahead and click OK, and the items will be transferred back to the return orders form. Here you can see the details. If I wanted to update the quantities, I could do so. If you change the quantity to a quantity higher than what was on the original sales order, an error message would be received. If I want to manually return an item, you can still manually add a line and type in the quantity as a negative number. If you scroll over to the right, you'll be able to see a column that's labeled Quantity Returned. If some portion of this sales order had already been returned, the Quantity Returned column would display the amount for this particular sales order that has already been returned. Here at the very end, you can see the return status is set to Expected. As this return order processes through the system, you'll be able to see the new return status on the lines. On the header of the order, you can see this in the upper right-hand corner. If you go down to the Line Details tab, you can see additional information. One of the things that you'll note here is the disposition code field. If required, you can select the disposition code on a particular order line. When you select the Credit Only option, it indicates that the customer is not expected to return these items. This will update the status of the line to no longer be expected because the customer is not expected to return those items. You'll notice that the other disposition codes we created earlier do not appear here. This is because they must be specified after the items arrive in your warehouse. We'll discuss how to process other disposition codes later in another lesson. Once you're done adding information to the lines of the order, you can also add charges. So if I needed to add freight, or if a freight charge was set up based on the reason code I selected, you would be able to see the charges transaction on the header or on the lines of the order. I want to go ahead and add a manual freight charge to this order, so I'll go ahead and add freight and then type in the value. It's important to remember whether you're typing a positive value or a negative value. A positive value will reduce the amount of money that the customer is going to get on their return order. A negative number would increase the amount that the customer will get. I want to reduce the amount they are getting to charge them for the freight that we will be receiving for the item that they are returning. You'll also notice on the right-hand side there's an order holds button. You can place a return order on hold much as in the same way that you can place a regular sales order on hold. Once you're done, you can send the return order. This is oftentimes used to send a document to the customer confirming that the return order will be received and giving them the details. If you want to print notes or send electronically, you can mark the check boxes and then click OK. Here you can see a sample of what the return order would look like when you send it to the customer. If the customer had a requisition number, you would be able to update that information on the header of the order. Now that we have created and sent a return order, we'll talk about how to process a return order by using item arrival and receipt registration in our next lesson.